Let me test. Okay, it's working. It's working. Okay, let's start. Wait, it's testing my bandwidth right now. Wait. Um, okay. Wait, it's testing my bandwidth right now. Wait.
of Chrome OS. I shouldn't say mock-up. It's the open source version of Chrome OS, which is Chromium OS. Chromium OS is actually um, Chrome OS and Chromium OS are actually both based off of Linux. And if you've ever looked at the Chromebooks price category, their hardware, the hardware of Chromebooks isn't necessarily top notch. That's why, like, because it uses the Linux kernel, that's why Chromebooks are able to run on such low powered hardware. It's because Linux is so lightweight that it doesn't need that high end specs.
Um,
But it still can utilize the high end specs. Um, but it doesn't need the high end specs to run smoothly. And I have more. Okay, so Linux can often be more secure than Windows or even Mac OS because it isn't as targeted by cyber attacks due to its small user base. Now, there are only a small number of people on Linux right now. It's by small, I mean it's a pretty large number, but compared to Windows and Mac OS, Linux literally takes up about 2% of the market share. While this is a kind of a disadvantage, it's still a really huge advantage. The reason why is because Windows and Mac OS are most targeted by cyber attackers. So Linux is not going to be as targeted. You're less likely to get cyber attacks. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And also, it's much better for privacy because it collects little to no user data. So here's the thing. That's another thing. Windows and Mac OS are both proprietary OSs, meaning that they both come from companies. So Mac OS, it's made by Apple. I'm sorry, I don't know why it took so long to say that, but Mac OS is made by Apple, and you can only use it on Apple devices. Whereas and you can't edit its source code either. Windows is made by Microsoft, and it can't have its source code edited either. Okay, but these companies, what they do, okay, what they try, like, let's say you have a bug on your system, okay, it causes an application to crash. Okay, what Windows or Mac OS will do is that they'll collect user diagnostic data for their purposes, meaning that they're gonna literally take some of your data, and that's a huge threat to privacy. Okay, Linux is completely community based, meaning that Linux is you only share, like, if you have a problem, you share whatever data that you want. No company is going to come behind your back trying to take your data just to improve on their software. Okay, so Linux is much better for privacy. So, and then Linux has a great community of users. So if you ever have a problem, you can turn to community forums for help. Okay, so have you ever stayed in line waiting for customer service? Wait time is 1 hour, 7 minutes. And you waste basically all of your time trying to get customer service, right? Well, guess what? You don't have to do that with Linux. Linux forums are actually very readily available to help. And if you might think, if I post something on the forum, won't it take long to respond? No, because Linux has compared to, even though the other operating systems have more users than Linux still has a wide community of users. Okay, and these users are ready to help, and it's not common to, like, post a response and within a minute get a really good response back. That's how good Linux community forums are. Okay, so, and then Linux is also, if you're looking for server deployment, Linux is a great option because, first of all, it won't be as taxing on your CPU and GPU and your RAM. So Linux is a great option for server deployment, and it's also kind of made for servers. So Linux is a great choice for those. Okay, and also, if you guys didn't know, even Apple and Microsoft use Linux for their servers. That's how reputed Linux is in the server front. Okay, and also many operating systems are based off of or share common roots with Linux. So Android, the Android operating system, it's based off of Linux. Let's see, Chrome OS is based off of Linux, and many others are based. And then iOS and iPadOS actually share a common ancestor with Linux as well. So these are Linux's advantages. Linux has many advantages, and even though it's not as user friendly as say Windows is, Linux is still a great operating system. And if you can get to know Linux, it's really good. Okay, so who wants to go next?
Um,
I'll go next.
So Chillax is going next. Windows.
All right, so first of all, what I want to say is that Caplish made some really good points out there. Got to give it out to him. So right now, I want to go against the Mac OS operating system, and I'm literally going to talk about the Mac computers. Now, right now, there are also thousands of PC computers sold at thousands of retailers. So there's basically a ton of variation when it comes up to Macs, all right, and Windows slash price of the. There's a variation between both the Windows and the Macs if you think about the price. Earlier, Caplish mentioned about the operating system costs, about um, the Windows and Mac. As you can see, the operating system for Windows obviously has some cost to it, and the Mac OS operating system also does. But on the other hand, Linux is free. But does it mean that Linux is better? All right, but for the cost effectiveness, Macs, on the other hand, have an almost universal price. They make their price so high. Some people say it's worth it, and some people say it's not. So you're basically less likely to get a good deal. So that was just a summary for the cost effectiveness of the Macs. Now, what I want to talk about is gaming, something that Caplish did not mention. Gaming. Now, the gaming industry is very huge, and computer games are becoming more advanced and also require a large amount of space. And they have graphics cards which require a lot of amount of space, like I just said. And for the price of Mac, think about the price of a MacBook, all right? And it certainly couldn't run the latest game titles. If you think about it, Windows has a bunch of options for games. There's so many options. Unlike the Mac, it doesn't have many options. Linux, on the other hand, I guess it's okay for games, I guess. Plus, many games are simply not compatible with the Mac slash Linux operating system. So Windows is the best option if you want to be a gamer. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the RAM that is required. For example, Windows virtual memory is much more effective than Mac, way more effective. A PC running, which is basically on low memory, will run slow. They won't break down. So for the Windows, there's not as much RAM required as much as the Mac. So this means that you basically need less RAM in a Windows computer to ensure that the Windows computer is reliable. All right. So now I'm basically going to talk about the technical support for the operating systems for both computers. So if you think about it, Apple technical support is more expensive than Windows and PC support. All right. Obviously, Apple, in my opinion, I feel like Apple makes their prices too high. Linux and Windows can agree on that. And first of all, there's very cheap technical support for the Windows, but on the other hand, for the Mac, technical support for the Mac is high. The price is very high, and I think the Windows technical support is pretty good compared to the Mac, even though the Mac price is high, but that is just an opinion. Not all computer stores deal with Macs, and taking your device directly to Apple can be costly at the same time. Now, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I mean, what I like especially about Windows computers is touchscreen. Now, touchscreen is actually very useful, but Macs don't support touchscreen. They don't support touchscreen. I have no idea why. There might be a reason to it, but they do not support touchscreen. And I think that touchscreen is a really useful, what do you call it? Really useful feature. For example, it's the coronavirus, right? It's the coronavirus pandemic is happening right now. And a lot of people have online classes, and people use online whiteboard for online classes. And if you want to draw on the whiteboard, it's harder to draw with the mouse. But if you have a touchscreen laptop slash computer, I think that it is much easier and it's just more compatible, your hand with the screen. It's just more easier to, on the screen if you want to explain anything and like etc. So now I am going to be talking about Linux versus Windows. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the user interface of Windows. The user interface of Microsoft Windows is much better in my opinion and like super easy to adjust as compared to other open source operating systems. This is basically due to the fact that the Microsoft Windows is designed in such a way that like basically the most basic users can adjust to. It's more easier to adjust to Windows than Linux because if you want to start off with Linux as like a beginner, I do not suggest you to do that. I suggest you to go with Mac or Windows because you at least need a technical idea about the Linux operating system. And again, gaming. So gaming on Linux is pretty good, but again, Windows beats Linux in gaming because again, the gaming industry is getting huge, and Windows is very compatible to handle different types of games more than Linux. But I mean, in my opinion, Linux is not that bad for gaming. And again, even though Linux's operating system is free, Windows is easier to set up. I know it might not make a drastic difference, but Windows does not require any technicality as anyone can easily install it. But when it comes to installing Linux, it can be a bit technical. Like I said earlier, you need to at least have a technical idea about Linux. So again, the Windows operating system is overall easy for beginners. I think it's very easy to use. It's compatible for gaming, and I think it is better than Linux and Mac OS in so many ways. So thank you. And Mac OS is next.
Okay. When you look for an operating system, wouldn't you want an operating system made by a company that has lots of experience? Apple is the richest company in the world, and they had the most experience with operating systems. They started creating their operating system in 1984, and it came with the graphical interface. macOS has lots of security. Their current Macs come with the T2 security chip, which is hardware based security. Things such as your fingerprint login are handled by the hardware, so it's harder to hack.
Topic. Sorry, quick interruption. We have a person who wants to join chat, who wants to join the video call.
What?
Who? No. What? This video call specifically?
Oh, yeah, he wants to join this video call right now.
Wait, like who? Like who?
Sharva.
No, dude, we said it would be only us three right now. Like,
Okay,
Oh yeah,
so
no, please
whoever
don't interrupt
maybe-
me. Okay.
like
If we
Korean
have-
Rune, it doesn't it's only us three. That's what we planned.
okay, if we have time for other people, we can join them at the end, right?
Yeah. After I'm done, and okay. Okay. Now can I
Okay,
keep?
Sharva,
Sure.
for distributing, If we have time, we will join you. Okay. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Continue.
You
To
can continue.
continue, the Apple App Store is one of the best app stores because it also combines the apps from the iPhones and the iPads and the other Apple devices. So it's much easier to use, and you won't have to learn to use another um, library of apps. Another thing is that it's based on Unix just like Linux. So it has lots of things that are in common with Linux, such as the layout looks similar, and the apps are similar, and also the terminal language is similar. This makes it easier for you to use the operating system if you already know how to use Linux. For people like developers, this is a really good choice. Another thing is that it's a closed system, so you don't have to deal with hackers and stuff. Because you can only get macOS if you bought a Mac device. And while Mac devices might cost more money, the price can be easily justified because the operating system is made by one single company. So this it does cost them more money, and the operating system is more RAM friendly to devices that have less RAM, and it's based on your hardware. Um, you can always change the appearance and layout just as you would in Linux by going to a terminal or downloading things like Tweak Tool. And there's a big library of apps, but if you don't have an app you need, you can always do boot using something called Boot Camp, which you can download Windows on, or you can always do a virtual machine, or you can download Vine. So you might think that there's not app support, but you can always use these other operating systems, and you can't do that on any other operating system because macOS is proprietary. macOS is pretty lightweight, even though it consumes lots of RAM, but it looks lightweight and it feels lightweight, so it's much easier to learn. And as for gaming, you can still game by streaming, and you can also game even though it's not as good as Windows, you can still do most of the things. And another pro to Macs is that they have better screens, so you can watch content and play games and outstanding resolution, and the colors look more bright. So when you edit video, it's much easier to understand and make your videos better.
Is that all?
No, I'm sorry.
Good point. Yeah. Okay.
And unlike Windows, the manufacturer doesn't have to pay for the operating system. So Macs have more premium materials, like things like the chassis is made out of aluminum, a really good type of aluminum. There's like no flex. The keyboards are really good nowadays, and things like the webcam and the ports are really powerful, so you can attach lots of docks and you can have like almost unlimited ports for anything you want. And yeah, and the updating is much easier. You don't have to like they don't force you to update. It's more and it's kind of easier to update. And macOS also takes less storage than Windows, so it's much you can put more stuff in your hard drive. And there's only one current edition of macOS, so you don't have to download other versions of the operating system just to have features that should be included. For you did pay lots of money for the operating system. I'm done.
All right.
Right.
Wait.
Okay. Next, can we counter each person? Hello?
Wait, guys. I want to say something about Linux.
what if we'll go in the order back? Okay, so like I'll counter argue against Mac and Windows, and then you'll argue against Windows and Linux, and then Stop will argue against I counter argue against YouTube. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll argue first. First of all, so the thing that you said about Linux, Chillax, about it having not having support for gaming. So here's the thing. True,
Oh, it's pretty good for gaming.
Linux does have a compatibility problem. Okay, it's not compatible with many apps, and that is because many developers don't look to create apps for Linux, as it's not that widely used operating systems for users. However, there is something called a wine. It's Wine is basically a compatibility layer that goes between your Linux and then the app. So basically, what it does, let's say you have a Windows executable file. The executable file, what it'll do, like it'll actually go through the compatibility layer, so Linux can understand it better. It Think of the compatibility layer like this. It's basically a translate.
Wait, I have to say something about that. That doesn't, not
No,
all
wait,
apps
say it in
work.
your
I have
turn.
experience. I have Zorin OS on one of my old PCs, and when I tried to download a few exe apps, it always glitches and it crashes. And
Okay.
that's not a hardware related issue.
Okay, but
I don't
even
really have an experience with Linux, so.
so here's the thing. Even though that there's not enough you can always run Wine. There are other compatibility layers as well, and some operating systems have native support for Windows.exe files. Some Linux distros have native support for Windows.exe files. Okay, so compatibility, yes, it is going to be an issue, but hopefully the compatibility layer will alleviate some of that issue. Okay, and about gaming, so do you guys know what Steam is? Steam is basically a library of games. Like you'll pay a monthly subscription and you get a library of games, right? So all Steam games, many Steam games, if not all of them, are actually compatible with Linux because the company that makes
Uh, Capillash, there's another thing bad about Linux. So there's multiple distros, so it's harder to choose which one you want, and there's different commands for each distro, so it's really hard to like learn everything. And every distro has different features, so it'd be good if there would be one thing with everything.
Sonic.
Yeah.
Well, we're going in a circle. Okay, so I'll argue first, and then Chillax, you can counter argue against both of us, and then you can argue against both of us. Okay. There's no interruptions, so it's easy. Is that okay?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Can you guys,
Why am I saying sorry?
mute? There's a lot of background noise on.
Yeah.
Shashank.
Okay, so back to what I was saying. So about Steam, many of the Steam games are actually compatible with Linux because Valve, the company that owns Steam, Valve's Steam OS is actually based upon Linux, the Linux kernel. Sorry. So therefore, a lot of the games in Steam are compatible with Linux, and game compatibility with Linux is still growing. So I could consider Linux a growing operating system. So if not now, in the future, it will still be a very good operating system. Okay, and about Mac OS being proprietary, I agree. But even then, if I were to argue about this, so remember how you said that Macs are very high quality? Well, guess what? You can find Windows laptops and Linux laptops as well, Windows and Linux computers that are just as premium, if not better. That's because that's because like you can install Linux on almost any device. It's very compatible with any device. So just to put that out there, and also Shashank, Satnik, what you said about you not having to pay the manufacturer to install your OS or something, like paying a commission to the manufacturer. there is only one manufacturer of macOS devices. Do you realize that? No other manufacturer can install macOS on their hardware because their hardware is not going to be compatible with macOS unless they make some modifications to the OS. So yeah, you don't pay commission because it's not like you don't pay commission because it's only specific to one device. Does any Chillax, do you want to go next?
Yeah, okay. So,
Wait,
first of all, no. Okay, first of all, I want to argue about Mac. I agree a lot of things about like Linux, but I want to talk something about Mac, okay? Okay, you mentioned that Apple is the richest company in the world. That is true. That is true. Yeah,
It's not just
it's
company.
not related to the operating system topic. But why do you think they're so rich? They make their products so like the prices are so high. That's like a feeling that
Okay,
um
but then again, what if the price is so high for Apple products, and why are they going out and buying them? Okay,
the
that's
thing
another
is,
thing to
like,
consider.
they're high
wait,
because they create like a aura of premium devices. And the thing you said about better Windows laptops for less price, you can't really find, like, even if you buy a Windows laptop that's as good as the Mac in like design and processors and stuff, you'll be able to find it around a similar price. You won't be able to find it like at a lower price than that. And like new
what do you
features
mean?
come to Mac devices first, like the touchpad. So that the touch bar that came to the Macs first. That type of stuff came to Macs first before it went to ZenBooks and stuff.
Okay, okay, here. Look here. The lowest MacBook price was $800, but if you see Windows, the lowest price for a Windows laptop
$1,000.
is two. I was. There it is.
Yeah, for a MacBook Air,
MacBook Air 13-inch, it's $800, and it could go up to $1,000.
Well, there are some
Okay.
things that the Air
Okay, a
has.
Windows computer costs $200, and it's as good as that. It's like
No,
six hundred
$200
dollars.
Windows computers aren't as good as a MacBook Air.
Fine. But
And the
there
MacBook
are
Air has some things such
lower
as,
costs. There are Windows computers with lower costs better than MacBooks.
yeah, but there's some things such
And
as
it makes a drastic difference.
design and
What?
Thunderbolt ports.
No,
Thunderbolt is much better than all the other ports.
no, Windows has more ports than the Mac.
No,
here's the thing about Thunderbolt. No, Thunderbolt. We're going to talk about Thunderbolt, okay? So Thunderbolt, it's not a completely mastered interface yet, okay? It is a very good interface. It's very, very, very fast. It's very compatible with other devices. But then again, not every single device uses it. As we progress, as technology progresses, I can see Thunderbolt becoming very, very popular. But right now, just switching to plain out complete Thunderbolt, that's kind of like taking the headphone jack out. Many people are still dissatisfied with that, and I'm pretty dissatisfied about that too. I personally like the headphone jack, and personally, I like having other port selections as well. I don't want to carry around a dongle with me every single day, so I think for now having Thunderbolt is fine, but it's not fine to go complete Thunderbolt.
Okay, wait. Okay, now I'm gonna go against Linux. Now, what I think about Linux is that there isn't a dedicated tech support. Like,
I'm okay.
Shashank,
Shashank's got so
okay, he's back. It's just a connection dropout.
yeah, no, I accidentally X'd out of the.
Oh my.
Wait. There isn't a dedicated tech support, in my opinion, so getting fixes for things is in your hands. So unless you subscribe to Enterprise Linux, then they're gonna have a dedicated support. You know what Enterprise Linux is?
So, okay, so about the tech support, okay, I already covered this. So, there are advantages and disadvantages to having a community-based operating system, okay? Number one, that one of the advantages of having a community-based operating system is that you don't like the privacy in the privacy aspect. You don't have to share like Microsoft won't take your information because it's completely open source, and you only get and only you have to share the information that you want. And so basically, you'll contact the community with your information, and the community will respond. And the community responses are actually pretty quick. So I've seen instances where the community, like somebody will ask the community, the Linux forums, that they have a problem with their operating system, or I want to tackle a project on this operating system. I need some help. Okay, and there have actually been instances, a lot of instances actually. In most cases, you'll get a very quick response back from somebody in the community. So I think that Linux's community support is very, very good. And first of all, and like unless you're gonna get like really dirty with your operating system, when are you ever gonna need customer support? That's the other thing I want to mention. In most cases, you probably won't need customer support. And in other cases, even if your operating system does do something that you don't want it to do, you can research yourself and find out. That's what
Also cases where you need customer support.
exactly. And if you need
And
customer
since
support, you can turn to the community.
Kapla, since your thing, since Linux isn't paid, like there aren't as much features. Like you won't get as much security and stuff. Yeah.
No, that's the thing. There's not as much of a user base, okay? And then the concept of repositories and all of that, it just makes Linux a whole lot more secure. That's why I think that Linux has a very high potential, because as it keeps going, even if it is open source, as the progression of Linux keeps going, it'll always be it'll always keep growing upon security. It'll always get new features. It'll always get new features, so it's pretty good. I think that Linux is for those people who it's not for those who want a very user-friendly UI. It does have user-friendly UI in some cases. I mean, a lot of people, like in my opinion, it's pretty user-friendly. Some of the distributions are very user-friendly.
Yes, because you have a technical, at least like some technical knowledge.
Some technical knowledge, but I've only used it for about a year now. But even
So
then,
Kaplush, another thing, the most popular Linux distribution is Ubuntu, which is made by Canonical, which is a pretty big company, and they also probably take your data in some way, shape, or form.
They do.
And you don't know that, right? You can't just assume that
But-
they don't take your data.
if you look at what they say, the
Well, you
Ubuntu.
can't really trust what they say, can you?
No, okay, listen. Ubuntu is an open source distribution. They probably won't take your data, okay? But even if there is,
How do you know?
Huh?
How
Yeah,
do you
dude,
know
you
that they
should,
want
you
to
should research this
Topic
stuff.
mentioned.
Open source.
Okay, fine.
It's literally open source. You don't have, and there's no connection. Whenever I've installed Ubuntu on a VM before, and whenever you do that, there's nothing about privacy policy or anything like that when you install Ubuntu.
Okay,
You know
yeah,
what
to
I
be
mean?
honest, I have no idea about the privacy policies next, so I don't really have nothing to argue about that. Look, I mean, topic.
True, but whenever you install Ubuntu, there is no, like, whenever you install Windows, let's say, whenever you install Windows, what do you think happens? Like, you'll go through the pages, okay, and then there'll be like, and then in the end, it'll say like advertising ID, privacy policy, and all that, okay?
Yes.
Whenever you try to install Ubuntu, have you noticed that there's nothing in that form or fashion?
Well, the thing about Ubuntu is it's just like all the other Linux distributions. They haven't really made like anything extra on their thing, right? So
What do you mean?
like it doesn't really have anything different than all the other all the other distros. That's the thing. Like most of them are just like the same thing, so there isn't really a point.
No, there's Manjaro. There's Manjaro, which is
Lots
based
of them
upon
are like the same thing.
Linux. No? Okay,
No.
so here's the thing. So about Arch Linux and Ubuntu, if you look at Arch Linux has a huge number of apps and resources available at its disposal, okay? Whereas Ubuntu, based upon Debian, it doesn't have that much. So there is support for more apps and stuff on that. And every Linux distribution is different, but they all have one thing in common, which is the Linux kernel. No, two things in common actually. Linux kernel, command line, and basically just some more aspects of the UI. But other than that, there's not much common about every distribution, uh, except that they're based upon the same kernel.
Okay, so are we done arguing, or do we have anything else?
So, Chillax, do you have any counter arguments to make?
No, I already made some, but okay.
Okay.
I think we can add Trevor now if he wants to talk too.
Sharva, are you there? Okay. Anybody on the live chat? If anybody's on the live chat that wants to be on the call, please respond now with your email so that we can add you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody?
Let's wait like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
there's
I wanna
3
talk-
people watching in my thing, and everyone's saying that your thing isn't working. I think your thing isn't working.
No, it's working for
Yeah, go
me.
check.
I went to tap with the stream.
Yeah.
It was working for me.
It's lagging sometimes, but it's still working.
Okay. Oh wait, Quan wants to
dude,
join.
For the Mac, are they ever gonna improve
Quan
on
wants to
gaming?
join.
'Cause, like, that's
Dude,
something that
can you send it to Quan?
I feel like the Mac is more of a productivity machine.
Yeah, they
Wait,
don't
can you send me
focus on
the-
gaming. Like, I feel like gaming is kind of important because, like, computer games are becoming more advanced and they do require a large amount of space.
True.
And,
But then-
like, on top of the range graphics card, they need a really good graphics card.
Oh yeah, so here's the other thing about macOS, okay? Their stuff, like Apple, what they do, they only get Intel CPUs, okay? And AMD CPUs are godlike. They're amazing CPUs. You can overclock them, which Apple doesn't let you do anyway because they're a closed system, just like Steve Jobs wanted. Okay, so they only get Intel CPUs, okay, non-overclockable, and they make you pay a hefty fine for those, okay? And you don't even get NVIDIA GPUs, you get AMD GPUs instead, okay?
Well, that's the
The
same thing
newer
with
versions
Linux.
of-
It's harder to use NVIDIA GPUs and
Exactly.
the Linux operating
At
system.
least it has support for NVIDIA GPUs.
That's exactly. Okay.
And again, support will grow for Linux as time progresses, okay? So, then again,
Linux is least used in the market.
Linux is least used in the market, but so what? It still has the potential to grow. Okay, it's used in servers. It's used, and even regular people use it. I use it pretty often for schoolwork. Okay, even though support's not that big. Wait. Okay, so Sharva wants to be in the thing. Okay, so let's see. Show. Show.
Risha wants
Okay.
to join too.
So Sharva wants to get added. Let's add
Risha
Sharva.
wants to join too.
Okay.
So.
Wait, how long are we gonna do this for?
Maybe like 10 more minutes max.
Yeah, okay, guys.
Okay, Rishabh wants to join the meeting, so I'll let him in. Hey, Rishabh.
Hey, so what operating system do you support, Richard? Like, just give some arguments and an opinion that you have.
Rishabh.
Hello.
Yeah, Richard, what operating system do you support? We just want to know.
What?
What operating system do you support?
I use Mac OS and Windows.
So, since you have experience with both of those, what do you think is better, like, overall?
First of all, I just want to say Mac is not built for gaming.
True.
Operating systems have different purposes for different people. Windows is mainly for gaming and stuff like that, and then Mac OS is meant for productivity. They're like and then overclocking is available on macOS. You just have to disable system integrity protection.
Mhm.
Okay, but is it natively supported?
Yes.
If you disable
Yes.
integrity protection, is Apple going to cover your warranty?
Yes.
No.
If you go within the turbo boost of Intel's CPUs. If you go within turbo boost, then yeah, they won't care.
Wait.
Wait.
Capitalist,
Okay.
let Sharva join.
Let me add Sharva as well. Scott Pearl at Gmail. Wait. Sharva, we sent you an invite. Check your email and then join it.
Just doing the link.
Wait, should I just send it to him?
Satvik, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Okay. Sharva, we sent you an invite to your email. If you want, I'll send the invite again.
I sent it in Hangouts. Sharva.
Yeah. So.
So everyone is welcome. Join the call if you want. What we want to know is just your opinions on each operating system. So we're letting anyone join.
I have 40 more minutes until I have to go.
Same out. I have to leave soon.
I have 40 more minutes.
Yo, Korean, if you want to join, you could. He's active on the stream. So I don't know what operating system. Yeah, I don't know what operating. Yeah, I sent him the link.
Priyan is. Wait.
Join
Priyan,
if you want.
is Priyan multitasker?
Yeah,
Oh, okay then.
he wants.
Okay, so Sharva Peralkar joined. Hey,
Nice.
Sharva. Quan wants to join. Wait, what?
Okay.
Wait, where does?
Just, yeah,
Okay, admit. Intriguing.
send the link.
Okay, so Quan. Hey, Quan. Quan.
I don't think his mic is working or something. Quan slash Sharva, we just want you to share your opinion on which operating system you think just,
Quan.
you're more user friendly.
And Rishabh, share your opinions. Okay. Quan. Sharva,
Anyone?
there's no OS that's completely superior to the other. Okay, I agree.
Exactly.
I agree. That's exactly what Rishabh said, okay?
They're
But
meant for different purposes. See.
There's no operating system that is superior to another because every
I know,
operating
we just
system
wanna
has
know
their
which
ups
one you
and downs
prefer.
that the other operating system doesn't.
yeah, which one do you prefer and why?
Yeah,
So-
we just want to know which one you guys like more. Like, I know there's not every operating system
Cousin,
is
for an
perfect.
example, he has a Windows gaming machine, and then he also has a Mac. So he does he games on his computer, and then he just does his work on the
No, we
Mac.
can't hear you, Sharva.
Even though he's like right next to his gaming PC, he has a Mac that he likes to use because Mac OS is good for productivity and working.
Exactly. So what he means is like kind of meant for different purposes, kind of.
Yeah, so I can't have a favorite operating system. Linux is also just for developers.
Wait,
mainly.
which one do you find
Mhm.
using most often?
That's agreeable.
Which one do you find
Here.
using most often?
If Linux is for developers, then why are there distributions of Linux that are meant for people who are coming from Windows 7 or Windows 10, and it copies basically the exact same GUI as that. So there are distributions of Linux that are meant to be that are meant for users, regular users. Even though that Linux is not the best.
Let me
for-
ask you this: do Windows people Hackintosh so they can game on Mac OS?
No.
Why do you think Windows people Hackintosh their Windows PCs?
So that they can have another operating system, so that it can interface with their Apple devices, because Apple is so huge at having an ecosystem.
All right. That's okay. You can use jailbreaks if you really want to use that, right? Besides it,
Not
besides
jailbreaks.
Apple,
This is not iOS. This is like Mac OS.
wait, you're not talking about iPhones, right?
No.
No,
Alright.
no, we're talking about.
Hello?
No, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So about jailbreaking. Jarvis?
Yeah, about jailbreak.
What do you
So
have to say about jailbreak?
I was talking about iPhones. Like iPhones are generally actually really good at if you want to use it with with a Windows device or any other type of device, right? It's really not that bad. But if you're being nitpicky, then yeah, you can jailbreak.
I have an iPhone and I'm using a Windows device to broadcast right now.
Yeah, what about it?
Yeah, so here's the thing. The thing about iPhones is that they interface very well with Macs. I'm getting an Apple Watch.
Yeah, because they're designed to. That's the whole point.
Exactly, but
You know?
here's the thing. But do you think having an open operating system is better than having something like an open operating system that is good in all forms of compatibility versus having something that's completely closed source and only interfaces with one device?
But the thing is that Apple has it closed, and they don't, because it's pretty much one of the most secure OS.
Yeah, that was one of my points. Closed system.
Because some things are open source, right? Most of them are extremely unsecure. Like people can add some sort of whatever, right? And it can make it super unsecure, and you wouldn't even know it.
I mean, that is true because it's open source. It's basically a Wikipedia. Think of it as Wikipedia. It can be changed. But even then, if you look at Linux being open source, it still has this concept of repositories. If you think it's so... Okay. How much... Okay, here we go. If you think it's so insecure, why do major companies, even Apple and Microsoft, for God's sake, okay? Why did those two companies use them as their servers? Aren't they multi-billion-dollar companies? Apple is a trillion-dollar company, sorry. So why did they use them as their servers? They hold critical information, and do you think that they would trust Linux if it wasn't secure?
Dude, that's different than the type of Linux that we use. That's a server Linux. It doesn't have a graphical interface. That's not the type of thing that regular people would use. So that's that's out of the question.
Whatever, it's still Linux, it's still open source. You can still look at its source code, right? You can find deficiencies in the source code and go through.
But that also has risks. People can change it. That's what the whole thing is about. People can change it.
There we go. Okay. If you want to talk about changing, even if you change it and then you publish it, okay? So
yeah.
That's why when you use Linux, you got to be a little bit more careful than the others, okay?
That's what you don't have to worry about when you're using other OSs.
No, okay, think about it. Think about it this way, okay? Sorry. If you're looking at a major Linux distribution, such as Ubuntu or Pop! OS or Manjaro, those three are all assured. You know why? Because there's a bunch of users that use them, and if there was a deficiency in the source code, then a user would point it out. Okay?
But for people that are inexperienced.
Hello? Harville? You just got muted.
Yeah. Sorry. They wouldn't. People that are new or beginners, they wouldn't see that, right? They wouldn't understand that. With other OSs, you don't have to worry about people like beginners or anything. It's just completely optimized for everybody.
But okay, like Rishabh said, there's an operating system for everybody. Okay, and sometimes think about this is a very popular debate that's been going on for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
iOS versus Android. Okay,
Prove it.
I'm not going to completely bring it up, but a lot of people doubted Android about its security in the first place because Android is also open source. It's based on Linux. But here's the thing: Android, just like Linux, allows for a greater degree of freedom. But iOS, just like Windows or macOS, doesn't do that. Windows, okay, it has a good degree of freedom, but even then, it still is limited in certain aspects. You can't change its.
Where?
You can't change its source code, Rishabh. You can't change Windows' source code legally.
But you can't really change the source code in Linux either. Can't really like change it yourself.
Exactly.
That is.
Linux is open source. You can change its source code if you want.
Dude, you need to understand what open source means. It doesn't mean you can just go there and just change it like.
Open source is a license.
I know
For any-
it's a license, okay, but here, look at this. You can copy Linux source code, okay? You can view and edit the source code to make your own distribution. You see, Windows doesn't allow you to do that. macOS doesn't allow you to do that.
Because is that really a bad thing though? Is that really a bad thing?
Like Rishabh said, there's an operating system for everybody. Some people want to create their own operating system. Linux is for those people and those people only.
No, it isn't.
Dude, it's
Yes,
not
it
for
is.
people who want to create their own operating system. Dude, what are you saying?
No,
You just said it's only for
Sorry,
people
let
who want to create their own operating system.
It's funny.
let me rephrase that, okay?
If you want to make your own operating system, get Linux.
Okay. Linux is for the developers, okay? Linux is for the
You
developers.
can make your own operating system in any operating system, but it's not. It depends on which one is optimized for it. Never mind.
What do you mean? No, okay, you can base an operating system off of Linux. You can't do that with Windows. Windows is proprietary. Hello?
Yeah, what do you want?
Hello.
Okay, this is getting out of hand. Okay, wait.
Okay, I think we should end
It's
it
getting heated.
because we're just like arguing over the same thing.
Okay. Any other things that anybody else wants to add?
Oh yeah, and before
And
we
if
end,
you
you need
guys-
to say a
You
few
don't
things.
need. Okay. You don't
No.
need Linux to write in assembly. You
What?
can write in assembly anywhere. Assembly
Okay.
the programming language for operating systems. You don't need Linux to do that.
Okay, wait. Let me research that really quickly. Wait. When you edit Windows source, let's see.
This kid doesn't even know his own answers to like what he's debating about. It's kind of sad.
Okay, can you edit Windows source code? Go. You can't edit Windows. You can't edit Windows source code. It's not possible. Legally, it's not possible to edit Windows source code. If you're going to be editing Windows source code, it's going to be illegal to do so.
But why would you even want to edit?
I'm gonna leave this call. This call is kind of useless because like y'all are
Yeah,
like
dude,
stupid
okay, bro,
topics.
just end it, okay?
This is like these
Okay,
are
so
like
before I end,
really
I would
stupid
like
topics.
to say, that we're opening a new YouTube
no.
channel for these type of things. So I would like
Guys.
you guys to
Okay,
check it
bro,
out.
these
I'll
guys are
post
just-
the link in the
Oh my
description. I'll post the link in the description for a new channel for debates and stuff.
Description.
Atlas, you messed things up. You messed things up.
Me?